Welcome to the New Discovery Christian Podcast, where you'll find Bible messaging and sermons that will encourage, uplift, and challenge you to a godlier life. Join our community and become inspired to continue living a God-directed life.
Welcome again to the New Discovery Podcast here with me, Kyle, your host, and Zach, my co-host with me, and Javan, my co-host with me. And welcome again to the Bible with the Bros. And, we've been diving into Genesis, and we're just going to keep on trucking. And right now we're in the verse, chapter 4, starting verse 1, if you want to follow us, with Cain and Able. So we're going to jump in and read, and then we're going to do as we usually do and kind of talk about it.
Cain and Able.
Take it apart and go from there. So chapter 4 of Genesis, verse 1. And Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be restless, wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I'll be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me."
But the Lord said to him, "Not so anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael was the father of Methuselah. Okay, wow, you gave me the hardest verses to read.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Methuselah.
Yeah, we're getting a little Hebrew action in.
And Lamech married 2 women, one named Ada and the other Zillah.
Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who played stringed instruments like guitars and pipes. Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, "Ada, Zillah, listen to me, wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times." Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son named him Seth, saying, "God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him." Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh. At that time, people began to call on the name of the Lord.
What were a couple things that you guys were thinking about? I got a couple things on my mind. I don't know if you guys wanted to jump in.
I'll jump in right now. Sin is crouching at your door, crouching like ready to pounce.
Where does
tiger? You got to stay on your guard because it's ready. Like anger, jealousy, pride. Whenever those start creeping in, I just can see sin like a tiger crouching closer. And if you let it, it attacks you real quick.
So I think it's another scripture verse. John had a sermon on it once, and it talks about how it's like a crouch. Like you said, that word crouching. It's like sin is waiting at the door or something like that. I think Jesus brings that up. I can't remember where. Maybe someone could put that in the comments for me where that's at. And like right at the door, it's like an animal, like you said, crouching at the door, waiting. And it's just like, as soon as you open it up, you think it's going to be good. Maybe you think it's my friend or something. And then bam, it just jumps on top of you and just takes advantage of you and destroys you. That's a good point right there.
But God does say it's crouching at your door, but you must rule over it. Meaning you have the opportunity to rule over it. You can tame that lion. You can tame that tiger like the Tiger King. Tame that tiger.
I like how that word rule too. What we just heard just a few chapters earlier is how we're supposed to rule over the world. And I think it's interesting how we're supposed to rule over that snake, rule over that temptation. And it's kind of like, hey, remember, you're supposed to be rulers of this world. You're not supposed to be slave, which is another word that's used later, slave to sin. You're not supposed to be the slave. You're supposed to be the ruler. You're supposed to be the king over this. Yeah, you're supposed to take control over this.
Get that whip in your hand.
Yeah, a little whip like Jesus in the temple action. A little bit of that in there.
Whoa.
Yeah, but I thought that was interesting. It's a little hyperlink back. It's like, remember, you're supposed to be rulers. You're supposed to take action. Don't let it take advantage of you. You take advantage of it instead. So, yeah, what about you, Javan?
So, I'll just go kind of in the order of how the story goes. So Cain sounds like he was the manliest of man. He was just like, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. So I'm guessing he was like kind of bigger, kind of stockier than Abel. Abel was a shepherd, and shepherds in the Bible were kind of smaller of stature, kind of skinnier. So that's what I'm imagining Abel to be like. And then it always confused me why God wasn't happy with Cain's offering and how he was pleased with Abel's. I'm like, they're both working and giving and sacrificing stuff that's valuable to them. It's like, why is God looking with disfavor on one of them? But it seems to be a flex show where Cain is like getting angry that he's looking with favor on Abel. And so it's kind of like Cain is doing it to kind of like show off. And I think maybe that's why God was like looking with disfavor or whatever at Cain and not Abel's, because maybe Abel was like giving it because he loved God. Cain was like giving it
to show off.
He was like, look at all these.
Look at all these.
What
awesome
did
fruits
Cain? What did Cain give? It said Cain worked the soil and
the fruits.
He brought the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. So he's like, look at all these pineapple and watermelons I brought. It's like he's probably like burning a bunch of them. And then Abel's kind of like quietly, discreetly doing it. It's kind of like, I mean, if you're at church, you don't really want to, I mean, you shouldn't.
I tithed $3,000 last week. What'd you do?
Flexing what you give. Yeah.
I think it's that, or I think it's he didn't give his best fruits. Like he held them back and gave them, it says, it says he gave them fruits from the ground, but it doesn't say anything about, the quality of the fruit, where with Abel it says, the fat portions of the firstborn of his flock, saying that those were high quality fat portions that he laid there. So it could be that
he didn't give him the best.
Yeah. Maybe he did. You could be right though, because maybe he did give him the best, and he was like, "Yeah, look at all these great fruits I'm giving." Or which he would probably look. God would probably not be pleased with that attitude of giving, or he didn't, or he held back something from God, which he wouldn't like that a whole lot either. I don't think.
There's been a lot of ancient interpretation, what you guys are talking about with, is it what he gave? Is it the quality of what he gave? And I think honestly, all those things are supposed to be coming to our mind because we're supposed to think about ourselves and what we give. I think what it is that we give, and then what quality it is what we give. And to be honest to this, it's not clear enough so that we ask those questions. And I think that's what's awesome about symbolism, is it brings to mind all these things and helps you think of yourself and your own kind of life. I will point out one thing that is of note in this between the comparisons between Cain and Abel. With Abel, it just brings up, hey, Abel brought his offering essentially, and it does mention the fat offerings. The hinge between them two is in verse 2 when it says, in the course of time, here's the word, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil. That word some is intentionally there to bring up that Cain came just so that he could say, I brought something.
Yep.
And that, I think that's the note. The sum, the one word out of that, it reminds you that he didn't actually sacrifice. And we talked about this in the disease podcast.
Yeah, with the penny.
Right. The widow later on in the temple, Jesus watching all the Pharisees throw in their silver and their coins, and maybe Cain put in a lot. Maybe he has a lot of fields, say, and he has a lot, but maybe he gave some of that. It wasn't a sacrifice to him. Whereas in the Pharisees, they're throwing in silver and coins, just probably thousands and thousands of dollars. Like, yeah, I mean, I have hundreds of thousands more, so whatever. And then Jesus like, no, don't look at them. And they're, people are blowing trumpets. How hilarious that is. It's like, look what I gave. Ego boost. I mean, that's what the Pharisees were doing.
They were blowing trumpets?
I believe it says that they were blowing trumpets when they gave. I don't know if it's in that exact story, but Jesus brings up
giving
blowing
Kyle Morrison for $1,500.
Right. It's like,
ooh,
look what he gave. Look at me.
It's like those live streams where those girls announce the donations on their live streams.
Oh my God.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gamer Girl 59, for donating $900.
Right.
Thank you.
It's like, we got Javan coming in here, and Javan today is putting in, what is that number? Hold on, wait, in suspense.
It's a measly $20.
Thank you, Mr. Simp 49, for your kind donation of $51.
BINGO.
But then Jesus like, okay, ignore all that hilarious, disgusting mess that's going, like we just talked about. Yeah. I mean, that's like the ancient version. He's like, get rid of all that baloney, that ego, strength, and flexing. He's like, but look at that woman right there, that widow that everyone's not looking at. There's no trumpets blowing. Everyone's like probably not even looking at her right now. Look at her. She just, it may not look a lot, but she just sacrificed. I think that's the point. She sacrificed right there with what she gave. And he said all that she has, but the main point is she sacrificed. It doesn't look like Cain is sacrificing. Cain's given. It could even be more than Abel, but he's not sacrificing. I think that's what we're supposed to get out of there. And then, like you said, what you both said is, why are you giving now? So it's like, okay, I showed favor to Abel. Why are you looking down? And the thing is he did what's right, because it says if you do what's right. So it's assuming he didn't do what's right. And it's just like, if you do what's right, will you not be accepted? Another way of saying that is, will you not find favor as Abel did? He's putting a rhetorical question. Do as he did, and you'll earn favor. So there's envy that's seething inside of
So he's looking at Abel's offering. He's doing some little comparing, because he's angry. He's seeing the favors on Abel, so he's doing the comparing. It should be a relationship between you and God. He's making it like a competition.
Yeah.
And that's not what God wants. He wants it to be like a relationship, a sacrifice. You mean something to him.
Right.
Instead, he's like comparing it.
I was sitting down with, I bring Piercy up in this, but we were talking about me pursuing, my master's and PhD, and he mentioned, and one day when I get on like a board or I get an interview on, say, wherever it is, whether it's a mental hospital or maybe it's
asylum.
Well, they don't use that word anymore.
Arkham Asylum.
Long-term mental health hospital, something like that.
Looney
and
bin.
He said, whoa, we'll edit that out. But the one day I get interviewed and they ask, how do you view finances, like money? And some people when they're younger, they just think money grows on trees, and then when you get hired, it's like someone's like, we don't have the money for that, and someone's like, well, we have to do what's right, so we just need to. He says, don't be like that. Don't be so ideological and zealous. He says, tell them what someone told me once. No, what is it? No romance without finance. And I think I brought this up with the youth not long ago. again, it's a sacrifice. And you may think, oh, I don't make enough money or stuff like that. That doesn't matter. The whole thing with the Pharisees and the widow is a great example. It doesn't matter how much you make. Is it a sacrifice? Because do you sacrifice in your dating or marriage relationships? If no, relationship's probably not doing too good to the degree that you don't sacrifice. And the same goes for here. God's like, I want a little skin in the game. And again, no romance without finance. Another way is no relationship without finance. It's not there because every relationship has to have finances attached to it. Friends and family and all the way to the degree of getting married, there's always finances involved in it. So that's the thing I think that's going on here. But there's another part too. Another Jordan Peterson, a psychologist, mentioned something interesting as he was talking about this from just a psychological perspective. Just he took it out. He didn't go into the theological as much, but psychological. And someone who's not even a Christian could really get something out of this as well. I know there's people listening to this that are not Christians. I already know that for sure. And he said what Cain is doing, he says what it's setting up for envy right here of what happens with Cain is that Cain, what envy comes from is I want to be like that person. But instead of being like them, I'm going to destroy them. And he says, what you're doing actually in your life is you're destroying what you want to be. He says, what do you do in life when you do that? When you destroy what you want to be, you destroy the person you want to be one day. He said, what kind of person will you be and become by destroying others that you want to be like? Instead of building yourself up and becoming that, you want to destroy the dream, the image of what you want to be instead. He says, what do you do with that?
That's pretty deep.
Yeah, I thought about that. And you destroy what you want to be. And what is described in Scripture in a theological term is you become a restless wanderer. And that's so correct. What else do you do in life? You're restless and you're wondering because where are you going? You destroyed what you want to be. And I think that really resonated with me. If I see something in someone that I want, do I want to destroy them in some type of way, either mentally or with them? Or will I face myself and say, what is it going to take to be like them? And I think if not, it labels you as a restless wanderer. It's just like that's the cause and effect there. Just God allowed him to be what he wanted to be. And he became a wondrous wrestler. I don't know. That definitely was something.
No, I didn't.
I don't want to be wandering blind.
Right.
Wandering blind don't sound fun to me. I know some people wandering blind.
Yeah, he marked him
Going
too.
through the
He
motions.
what did it say? Where's the verse?
About being a wanderer?
No, it's Cain got that mark because when people saw Cain, they knew that he would. You don't want to mess this dude. God will rain vengeance on you 7 times over. I'm just looking for that verse that talks about the mark.
You're under a curse in verse.
So
10.
even amongst the punishment, God sort of gave him a blessing because Cain was worried about his life, but God said, no, I will protect you, but you were gone. So he punished him, but he gave him a little grace as well.
Yeah, he did, didn't
he? He offered protection. He probably eased Cain's mind a little bit, having to wander the rest of his life.
Well, Cain, essentially, I think it's interesting how even Cain says himself, you're driving me away, and I'll be hidden from your presence. And that equals I will be a restless wanderer, not being in your presence. So Cain, by his actions, took him outside God's presence, and he made himself a restless wanderer. Now, like you said, God still gives him grace, though. However, it's in verse 13.
Yeah,
14.
did he go to hell or like what happens to Cain after this?
He goes and builds a city, and then that's at the end where you two were reading, where it talks about building a city and the instruments and living in tents.
Talks about his lineage.
Well, it does. It's interesting is that he's still blessed with a lot of stuff here. It looks like he built a city. He had lots of families. He still flourished. It seems like God didn't allow him not to flourish. That's one of the blessings of Genesis. Like you said, God allowed him to still have the blessings of Genesis, and he didn't take that away.
Cain might get him a little heaven action in.
He could.
You don't know.
It's just not very clear in here at all.
I wonder if they keep a record on what people have done. I mean, I'm assuming they probably wouldn't in heaven, but like, I would kind of hate to be the first murderer in heaven. It's like
I think there's a book.
there's a book.
I think everyone's in the book with a little essay.
I guess it really wouldn't
Book of
matter
life.
because everybody's
Book of life.
So it's going to be
sins.
opened up at the end in
Yeah.
Revelation, and we're going to read through the books. So
Dude, if you take that literally, that's gonna be embarrassing. That's gonna be like a cringe compilation of all our lives.
yeah, because it says that nothing will be hidden that has been unseen. Everything will be made known. I
Just
think that's
imagine you're in a
Ecclesiastes.
line. There's a giant big screen, and it's like we get to person 005794.
watch all of it on TV.
And it's like, look at this fool. it's like Jesus is a roast commentator.
Oh my gosh.
That wouldn't happen, but
Yeah, I don't know
That's
yeah.
interesting that would like the book of life that they're gonna announce all that crap.
Somehow it's going to be made all known. I don't know how that's going to go down,
I'm
but
pretty sure Jesus is going to have it, and if you are a follower of his and believed in him, then he'll just sort of throw the book away and be like, all right, you're good. Come on.
well, it even says even the righteous will be held accountable along with the wicked. Yeah.
Well,
so
All right, well, never mind.
I don't know how that's going to look
That's gonna-
exactly. I don't know, but somehow everything's going to be made known. But you're going to be in the presence of grace to the full extent while it's there, if that makes sense. Like you're going to be living in God's presence in full grace, acceptance, his abundance, his love. And that it's going to be, it's like having a tough conversation with someone in the midst of someone who's compassionate and loving and full of grace. It's like, that's different than someone who's full of judgment and hate and condemnation and making you feel bad and
Look at
dumping
you, what
shame
you
on
did,
you.
you little piece of crap.
Right. That's
Take
what
you
I
out
think.
back and whip you, boy.
Yeah, that's
Take
interesting.
the belt off. Yeah, it's a good image.
Do you think they
yeah.
do that in hell? Do you think like because there's I know there's somewhere in the Bible that talks about realms of hell or like levels, degrees of hell, and so it makes you kind of wonder if like the more wicked go to the deeper realm or where you get tortured heavily. So like are these demons like remembering what they did or kind of categorizing? That's a weird.
I think there's a part of this in here, and it's another thing Peterson said that really stuck with me too. And I don't know if it was in this context, but it was in this context, yeah, because he was talking about Cain's face, and it was like details in the scriptures. It's like are rare. So when there's a detail, it's there for a reason, usually because they're very heavily symbolic.
Yeah.
When it says his face was downcast, that's in verse 5. Then again, it brings it up, downcast in verse 6. It repeats that again. So it added us something specific, but also it repeated it again. Just like Restless Wonder, it repeats it over and over. And what Peterson was saying is he says he remembers when he was in an area of Quebec or Toronto, because he lives in Canada. He's a Canadian. And he says, I distinctly remember when I go down some of those really rough streets that when I look into certain people's lives that have just fallen apart and are complete disasters, and he says, you know who they are when you see them on the street. They just have this like
An aura, just a vibe.
yeah, around them. You just know. And he says, when you look at them, they won't look you in the eyes. They'll put their head down. They can't keep the eye contact. They'll always look down, and they just can't stand to look at you, because looking at you reminds them of
How
what
bad
they've
their-
done,
yeah,
the shame,
situation.
right? And he says they live in that, and that's what's happening here. Why is your face downcast? And it repeats it multiple times. It's because he is, and Peterson says, he goes even further, because people are asking him, does he believe in eternal hell and eternal heaven? I don't think he gives a clear answer whether or not he does, but I like the next thing he says, is that he says, I certainly believe within a heaven and hell that lives right now. He says, I've seen people live in hell. And he says, those people who are living in hell right now, they are in hell to the full extent in their life right now. And that's why they're looking down, because their life is a complete disaster with people and jobs, finances, and living in such deep shame of their faces being downcast. And sometimes he even mentions like them getting angry, you looking at them like a look of resentment at you because you're in a better position than they are. Again, this is all tied in with Cain and that envy and resentment and where that leads to in your life, because they've already destroyed what they want to be.
Right.
It's just like some of those people who always complain about people being rich and the amount of money they have, but they want to be rich. you're destroying what you want to be. That doesn't make any sense to me, and that's not right. You're envying over someone else's stuff, but you want to put them down and destroy them because they're doing better than you. That's just essentially what envy is. What you're doing is you're destroying someone of what you want to be. And where do you end up in life from that? Well, Cain. That's the way it's being set up right now. You're restless all the time, and you're wandering around. You have no aim to life. And I like that Peterson brought that up. You can be living in hell, a living hell to a real extent. And I think that's what hell is all like, is living in your shame, just living in your guilt, living in your pain, and getting it from other people and from yourself. And you're always being downcast, not having favor from other people, not having favor from God, not living in his presence, which is compassion, which is full grace. And again, like you just mentioned, it's like the difference between being around someone in a tough conversation with all of that compassion and caring and acceptance, even though it's a tough conversation.
Positivity.
But then the reverse is you're going to a place essentially where you're just being taken out back and just being whipped all the time. Yeah. Because that's just what that reality is. And Peterson just says, whether there's an eternal one or not, and he's not a preacher or teacher or anything like that. He's a psychologist. But he says, that's what I imagine that it would be like. And that way it's kind of described. It's just full of that pain, full of the shame. Just like some of those people that have their face downcast. It's an eternity. He's right about hell.
They won't look you in the eye. They don't ever look you in the eye. They're all like, just look,
Right.
They don't ever look you in. Next time I talk to somebody, I think I'm gonna be like, look at me in the eye when you're talking to me.
The eyes are the window to the soul. Oh. So when you're looking at someone, in a way, you're looking into their soul. Mm. So when you're looking at someone like that, it's like you get to see their insides. It's kind of a weird thing, but it's true though. Yeah. That's where eye contact shows that you care about someone, you have their attention on them, and you feel connected to that person when you keep that eye contact. So again, that's another thing we talk about sin is it's a disconnection from God and disconnection from people, a separation. Yeah. Sometimes it's talked about. People can't look in the eye because they don't want to be connected. Deep down, that's what's happening. They don't want to be connected because of all of that down deep that's not being taken care of. And I think that's really what hell is. Some people are living in it right now, and they'll live in it for eternity. Some people have decided to get out of that hell, which, goes with the whole message of the gospel is getting out of the hell. Yeah. Everyone's been in the hell. It's getting out of the hell and getting into the connection. Connection with people and connection with God again, at least restoring that and that relationship with God's people and with him.
You know that song?
What song?
If you're going through hell, keep on going, face that fire. Walk right through it, you might get out before the devil even knows you're there.
Oh, man dude. I think that was our first country song here on the podcast.
I thought he was going to say, if you're going through hell, just go to Taco Bell.
Commercial.
Remember that commercial?
Our professor used to call Taco Bell Taco Hell.
Taco Hell. My toilet be looking like Taco Hell.
That's where he got it from.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. There's another one for KFC. But I'm not going to say it. That's a little
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
No, it's different. There's a different word for chicken with the C word.
I got a cousin who all he does is eats the skin off the chicken.
What?
He just eats the grease off the chicken.
There's an episode of South Park. Cartman does that.
Oh.
He eats the skin off the
cow.
He just eats the fried grease off the top of the chicken.
Yes, because he said that's the best part.
I mean,
he's gonna get the disease from eating like that.
Yeah, disease.
Yeah, Cartman definitely.
Was there anything else? That was one of the main things that I brought up that I wanted everyone kind of live with when they can see in their own lives. From Cain, just symbolically.
I think we covered, the first part is the main part. After that, I was trying to do the accents with the names and everything, just to kind of spice it up.
A little Persian accent. I liked it, actually. Yeah, it was good.
Lamech, Zillah, and Ada.
Zillah, Ada, Allah. Whoa.
Whoa. We just put Allah in there.
Too far.
Here we are. Akbar.
I'm getting distracted. I was going to say one more thing.
Anything else that you saw in there?
Okay, so I'm trying to look for the verse where he killed his brother. Did it say he killed him with a rock?
It does
Did
not.
Cain attacked his brother Abel and
Yeah.
killed him. So it doesn't go into details about how he killed him.
Yeah.
Can you imagine killing one of your brothers? Or like, well, you have a brother, so you can.
Yeah.
I have a brother. I can't imagine like they didn't have guns back then. They didn't have like fast weapons.
Head with a watermelon.
Like it'd be like you're looking at a
be a
blunt
slow death.
object, literally killing the crap out of wrecking your brother. Like
Yeah.
you have to be in a really deep zone of like just jealousy, hatred to literally go full sicko mode on your brother, like go gorilla mode.
Unless you just like kicked him off a cliff, which
Unless-
is still pretty
that
messed
could-
up. Like
that
there's
could
still a lot of
happen.
effort
Yeah.
in that. Like you have to literally shove someone like
you have
really
to-
hard like off a cliff,
And then you have to
them
watch him
down.
go, oh.
Yeah, and then get smashed.
Why did you
at
do this
the
to
bottom.
me?
Yeah, or versus the rock or a club to the
suck
back
at
of the
the
head or
brother.
something like that. It's just like
That's just
so deceptive. And there's deceit in here, like the serpent. I guess that's in there too. He deceived him, like the serpent deceived Adam and Eve into the field and killed them. So there's symbolism going on there with death and sin. So there's a lot of that going on in there. He's essentially the snake. Again, he's a child of the snake, like we talked about the last time we met. That's who he's the child of right now.
He
and
let that
deception.
jealousy take over, and that's the devil's.
I think I know
territory.
something.
Tell us.
I think I know how Cain killed Abel.
Uh-oh.
Tell us.
Wow.
A choke slam, then a tombstone pile driver. RKO! 1, 2, 3.
You brought up you're going to bring WWE in here. Here it was.
1, 2, 3. Then a chair shot to
You
the
know
head.
what? We'll leave that as the last.
I call this brotherly love.
Well, we're gonna leave off on that. I think
Bang,
that'd be a
bang.
good way to leave off on the podcast.
The devastation.
All right. Thank you for joining in on the podcast again with Bible with the Bros, and joining in with some of our goofy humor. Maybe that's what we'll call
Speak
it.
for yourself.
Yeah, getting a little something out of it spiritually, psychologically, just where we're going in life, and hopefully you're learning a little bit like we have today. So we'll join in again on. We're gonna go into
Why'd you do it, Cain?
Adam to Noah. So we're gonna end up going to Noah next time.
Cain, don't do it.
Looney bin.
See ya.